Hey guys, Steinixos here.
So today, we'll be talking about God D. Usopp. Specifically, we'll be trying to figure out just how powerful he really is. Now, throughout the series, Usopp actually tells us quite a bit about his true strength. You see, the thing is, most readers tend to brush off these little nuggets of enlightenment, calling them lies, jokes, or wild exaggerations. But the truth is, Usopp has always been telling the truth. He's just subtle about it. A being of his caliber, someone who's deliberately hiding in the shadows, obviously can't make things too obvious. So instead, he leaves behind hints, small, seemingly harmless comments, gently nudging us toward understanding his true power without ever saying it outright. So today we're going to dig through those clues. We'll be cataloging every one of those so-called lies, those hidden truths, that Usopp has shared throughout the entire series. And by the end, you'll see exactly how powerful he really is, and maybe, just maybe, understand why he's called God Usopp. Now, interestingly, the first thing you have to come to grips with, on the path to truly understanding Usopp's real strength, is that you have to throw out almost everything you think you know about the series. You see, even the things that seem like solid facts, the stuff that everyone just accepts as true, are often clever bits of misdirection, deliberately woven in to conceal Usopp's true power. For example, most people believe that Luffy was the one who took down Arlong. That's what the story wants you to think. But in reality, it was Usopp who actually did it. He even subtly confirms this in chapter 114, when he mentions that there's a rumor going around that the 30 million berry bounty on Luffy's head is actually because of him. Now think about that for a second. Did you really believe it was just a coincidence that Usopp happened to appear in Luffy's bounty picture? Come on now, coincidences like that are way too convenient to be real coincidences. And I mean, let's be honest, we're talking about God D. Usopp, a man who openly claims to command a crew of over 8,000 men. Do you really think someone like that would need to tag along with an upstart like Luffy, who at the time barely even had a crew to begin with? Of course not. So again, disregard everything you think you know about One Piece as a story, because what's really happening is far deeper. God D. Usopp isn't just a character moving within the story, he's the one allowing the story to happen. He's been subtly guiding each member of the Straw Hats along a predetermined path, like chess pieces on a board, all for his own quiet amusement. But now that we've got the baseline stuff out of the way, I'm sure most power scalers are going to say, yeah, okay, he controls the story, which is cool and all, but how strong is he really? You see, people want to hear about the usual things, attack potency, durability, that sort of stuff. However, even when you try to confine a being like God D. Usopp into those small human-made boxes, he completely shatters every sense of normalcy. You see, if we start with durability and regenerative ability, the picture gets wild fast. God D. Usopp is a being who appears to be completely immune to all diseases and status ailments. He literally tells us that he has never once been sick. Not in his entire life, and Vivi herself even points out that such a thing isn't human. That kind of perfect health, that absolute immunity, already places him far beyond the limits of ordinary biology. But even if you could somehow damage him or afflict him with something, it would still be completely meaningless. Why? Because he has access to a stash of miracle medicine, a medicine so potent it can cure any ailment, heal any wound, and undo virtually any form of damage. And he doesn't just hoard it either. No, he's so casually powerful that he literally sells it to random passers-by on the streets of Wano. So there's no scenario where he runs out, no situation where he's left vulnerable. In other words, a durability discussion around God D. Usopp is utterly pointless. Because when you're functionally immortal, when you can't be harmed, can't be diseased, and can always restore yourself to perfect condition, durability stops being a category you can even apply. But how about his attack potency then? How does that actually stack up? Well, again, just to help you get oriented here, let's start with a simple base fact. One of Usopp's earliest opponents was Enel, a being literally worshipped as a god by all the residents of Skypiea. And here's the funny part, even God D. Usopp himself acknowledges Enel as a god. You see, that alone should tell you something, because the kind of person who faces off against a literal god as one of his early opponents, and treats it like just another Tuesday, is not someone you can measure using ordinary power scaling categories. Now, of course, Usopp allowed Luffy to be the one to defeat Enel, purely for the sake of the story. He had to let the plot move forward somehow, right? But even the mere fact that his opponent roster includes actual deities tells you everything you need to know about his offensive capabilities. And honestly, this shouldn't surprise you, because even as a 5-year-old child, God D. Usopp had already taken down the Island Eater, that giant goldfish species said to reach heights of over 715 meters. Giants like Dory and Brogy themselves noted that its mere poop are so massive they're often mistaken for natural islands. Think about that, a creature so colossal its waste becomes part of geography. And yet even that was no problem for a child Usopp. And, you see, his ability to casually deal with absolutely massive creatures is something that's been reinforced throughout the series. For instance, he explicitly tells us that he's fought, and obviously won, battles against Sea Kings in the Calm Belt. And those aren't just any creatures. These are monstrous god-tier beings that can grow up to 5 kilometers long. And again, this wasn't some post-time skip feat. This was before he ever joined Luffy's crew. So just like with the Island Eater, he was casually slaying Sea Kings as a child. And it doesn't even stop there. Usopp also mentions encounters with unknown colossal beings, the kinds of godlike monsters we glimpsed near Jaya, so tall that they stretched higher than the sky itself. And what does he say? He tells us that if he ever got even a little serious, those beings would be light work for him. In fact, he confirms he's already defeated 10 of them. Again, this is a pre-Luffy feat, meaning once more, this was child Usopp. But even that's only scratching the surface, because God D. Usopp's attacks aren't limited to the physical realm. He's a curse magic user, someone capable of turning his thoughts directly into reality. A fleeting idea in his mind becomes a tangible effect in the world. You see, when he describes sensations like searing blades piercing his opponents or plague-like pimples erupting in their mouths, those aren't metaphors. Those are low-level manifestations of his curse magic, the kind of abilities he wields casually. And again, remember, Usopp was the first character to introduce this concept of literal magic in the series, long before Imu's sorcery ever showed up in Egghead and Elbaf. That was yet another gentle nudge, another subtle reminder from the author through Usopp, showing us who truly governs the narrative of One Piece itself. Furthermore, we haven't even begun to cover the physical side of his power, because, you see, even if you ignore the more fantastical aspects and focus strictly just on the brute force physical aspect, we know that Usopp can casually carry 5-ton and 10-ton weights, the same kinds of weights that characters like Zoro actively train with to push their very limits, and god-tier beings like Goku actively struggle with. And that's Usopp's warm-up set. And if you think that's all, think again, because Usopp also possesses access to alien technology, advanced otherworldly gear that surpasses even the fabled ancient weapons. You see, he's been in contact with an alien shopkeeper ever since childhood, something he subtly revealed to us long before the NL Space Voyage cover stories ever confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life in the One Piece world. I keep telling you, with this god, there are no coincidences. But perhaps the most profound piece of the puzzle lies in his alternate identity, Sogeking, the king of snipers. You see, Sogeking isn't just a mask or persona. He's a higher dimensional conceptual being, one who doesn't exist in the material plane at all, but rather within the metaphysical realm. That is, he is from the heart space of all conscious life. In other words, Sogeking is Usopp's divine form, the projection of his consciousness into a higher dimension, a plane that transcends space, time, and even narrative causality itself. So when you really think about it, when you put all of this together, you start to realize something staggering. Attack potency doesn't even begin to describe him. God D. Usopp operates on a scale where power itself is just another story mechanic he chooses to toy with. So in the end, when you really take a step back and look at it all, you start to see that God D. Usopp isn't just a warrior, or a storyteller, or even a god in disguise. He's something far greater, the embodiment of boundless willpower itself. You see, this is a man who knows no fear, a man who stands face to face with giants, gods, and monsters, and laughs, a man whose courage alone bends reality to his favor. And it's no coincidence that he's been shown, time and time again, to possess Conqueror's haki, the kind so overwhelming that it can shake the entire nation of Dressrosa to its core. And later, in Wano, that divine pressure was reaffirmed once again, a subtle reminder from the story that true kings don't need thrones, crowns, or armies, they just need presence. So when you put it all together, his limitless will, his unshakable fearlessness, his world-shaking spirit, you realize that God D. Usopp isn't merely part of the One Piece story, he is the will that drives it forward, the quiet force behind every miracle, every twist, every victory, the man who laughs at gods because deep down, he knows he's already surpassed them. But anyway, that's the video guys. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. But anyway, see you guys next time.